أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام عليك يا رسول الله. This is the podcast of Deen of an Old Woman. Let's look at ourselves today and see what we are basically composed of, what we're made of. Because, there's a saying that says, those who know themselves know Allah. So let's just look a little bit briefly to who we are. Because once we know our identity, our purpose, the meaning, we have confidence. And from this confidence, we can move and evolve to a better human being. We move from one stage to the other, and providing, of course, that we keep on seeking knowledge, learning the Quran and living by it. So let us look at ourselves. And the first thing obviously is that we have two components to ourselves, or two dimensions to ourselves, or two aspects to ourselves, which is the physical and the spiritual. And this is very obvious. Any simpleton will tell you that these two realities exist. Because when we die, the spirit leaves the body. So, it becomes distinct. So you can tell the two entities that we are composed of. The physical aspect of our being is plain and clear. And we can touch it and see it, and which is the body, obviously. And we have these five senses. We know the hands exist, the feet exist, this sort of outer thing. But the most essential element of us is the spiritual aspect. And this is explained in the Quran in a beautiful way, so that we understand who we really are. Allah tells us in the Quran that He blew His spirit in a human being. Instantly, we should understand the deep connection, between Allah and human being. That He is the Rabb and with Abd. He is the Lord and we are the slave. Allah breathed His soul into us. Allah breathed His ruh or spirit in us. This established this unique companionship, this very close relationship, how, the deep connection with our Creator. And this spirit is the most important and sacred dimension of us. It is this that composes who we are. It gives us our consciousness, our awareness. It gives us our identity. It gives our purpose. It gives our meaning. It gives us everything. And even like emotions like fear and hope are embedded in this reality. So can you imagine how important for us is to understand our inner dimension, so that we can understand our fears and hope? And we know that the driving force between human behavior is fear. Once we understand that, we will not be controlled by it, neither manipulated by it. Because when we see how this world functions, how the people who want to manipulate us, whether it's the politicians or whether it's the media moguls or whether it's the wealthy people, they tend to use a fear tactic to control human beings. And this is a known fact from the year dot. In all history, one of the best way to control humanity is to make them, to invoke this fear element that's what's inside them. And you can take any civilization, whether it's a Greek civilization or Egypt or Chinese, and you really delve into it and you read the mechanism and the functioning of that civilization, you'll come to the conclusion that the rulers often use fear to rule. So subhanAllah, can you imagine once we have that understanding, we will be free human beings. You know, it's so sad that in the Western civilization, freedom, you know, they see, you know, this, they go on about it, but in reality, none of them are free. It's only when we study Islam, we look deep into it, we live by Islam, that we truly become free. And that's why when Allah tells us He blew His Spirit in us, so when we turn to Allah, when we become His slave, that's total freedom. So let's just look at this soul that's within us, is constantly progressing, moving, transiting from stage to stage, transitioning, sorry, I can't say that word, from stage to, meaning that it evolves, it moves. So the more knowledge we seek, especially knowledge of Allah and knowledge, you know, from the Quran and relate it to reality, the more the soul will evolve and grow. This movement is actualized that we actually see, you know, how can I say, we become to the realization that who we are and what the other peoples are doing to us. And that becomes clear to us because of this knowledge of the soul and trying to understand it. And Allah tells us in the Quran, look, subhanallah, the one who blew His Spirit in us, He tells us that I've sent you guidance. I've sent prophet after prophet after prophet for us to be guided and to follow this role model. Allah sent Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam so that we could follow him. He brought the Quran, and it tells us in the Quran, right from the beginning when He put Adam alayhi salam on earth, right to the end until we enter Jannah, inshallah, is that those of us who follow the guidance, they will have no fear, nor will they grieve. Look at that, subhanallah, that sentence. They will have no fear because we will understand who are people who are trying to control fear, and we won't be controlled. Therefore, we won't have fear. And especially when we trust in Allah, the fear melts away. And neither will we be grieved or become sad. Meaning that, you know, the previous wrongdoings that we've done, we won't be carrying that heavy burden of guilt. We ask Allah's forgiveness and we move on. And neither will we have, you know, anxiety about the future. Future is in the hands of Allah. We trust and rely and believe and worship Allah. Therefore, we don't worry. We know the future is in hand. It's not in your hand or my hand. None of us know what's going to happen tomorrow. None of us know what's going to happen tonight. None of us. This shows that the future is in Allah's hand. So when we live by the guidance of Allah that is sent to all the prophets, that's when we live life of peace and security. And you know, each one of us are looking for security. Whether it's, you know, in economic or in social interaction, we always are looking for security. Economic security, social security. And that is achieved by following the Quran and the Sunnah and living by Islam. So when we have achieved that to a certain extent, and no human being is perfect, and Allah doesn't expect perfection. Look at that merciful Lord, subhanallah. He doesn't expect perfection from you and I. He expects effort and that we do our best. Ihsan. Ihsan, meaning the best. Whatever we do it to the best of ability. But no, subhanallah, you know, it's so interesting. When I was young, I used to read Imam al-Ghazali's work, which was translated, obviously, by the Orientalists, and they would write, "Oh, dear reader, oh, no, seeker of the truth, oh, no." So, subhanallah, you know, I'm going to say that as well. Oh, you who believe, know that when we reject the guidance and follow our desire, that's when we head for disaster. that's when, we don't evolve spiritually. We don't understand. We don't have security. We don't have safety. We have no one to rely upon. Wallahi, the other day, a friend of mine came to visit me, and she's a revert or a convert, whatever you want to call it. And it was so interesting what she said. She said to me, do you know what? I can't understand people who are not Muslim, how do they navigate in this world? Because of, the difficulty and the challenges of this dunya, of this world, when they don't have anybody to rely on and to put the trust in, how do they go about? And this is a person who used to live without Islam before, who has experienced both camps. And she was saying to me how fortunate it is that she actually has found this peaceful way of life. Subhanallah. So when we don't, progress spiritually, when we don't grow, when we don't develop, we start slipping into sad reality that gives us no peace, no security, and we live a life full of stress, anxiety, and misery. Wallahi, the choice is ours. How many times I remind myself this again and again, and to all of you, that the choice is ours. Life is what we make of it, how we use our free choice. Do we use it to learn, to understand, to grow? Or are we stagnant and that we're following our whims and desires, our lust and our greed? Are we doing that? What are we doing? And each one of us know. We know Allah created us like that we know. So when we are in this dark reality, just following our whims and desire blindly, blind from the truth, in this state, some of us will turn to substance misuse, whether it's alcohol or drugs, to escape that condition. Look at the irony of it. We create the condition, then we try to escape the condition with other bad things. Isn't it sad? We create that condition, and then we try to escape it with this temporary, quick fix, alcohol and drugs. And we don't understand the consequence of doing that. Not only we destroy ourselves in this world, we destroy the akhirah as well. So be very careful. Be very careful. And shaitan is very, very clever. It's very clever. It has PhD or whatever you call it. It has all, so cunning. It will seduce us bit by bit to our destruction. And it will delve into us. As the Prophet ﷺ said, the shaitan runs in the son of Adam the way the blood runs in our vein. It goes deep into us. It looks at our fear and our likes and dislikes. And especially the fear. Look when the shaitan controls us with our fear. So, if I fear for my children or my grandchildren, it will come slowly, stage by stage, bit by bit, trying to make me do haram. And I won't realize it. And I'll think, it's something that I chose to do. No. It's something shaitan suggested. It wasn't me, it was shaitan who suggested it. I ought to realize that. Because you know what? On the Day of Judgment, when we be standing before Allah, we're going to point at shaitan and say, he made me do it. And shaitan said, I never made you do anything. I suggested to you, and it was your free choice that you did it. Look at the merciful Lord. He told us even the conversation we'll be having with shaitan in Akhirah. Wallahi, look at the mercy. Which faith, which religion tells us that? This beautiful Islam, we are blessed with this way of faith. So, subhanAllah, so when we believe in one true God and believe that we have absolute conviction, subhanAllah, in His existence, and that His revelation, as you know, subhanAllah, as a Muslim, we believe in Allah and His books and the angels and the messengers and the Day of Judgment and decree. When we have all that belief really strong and we are really sincere by it, and that, forms our core, our core foundation, and when we live by it, then we will be successful. And you know, subhanAllah, look at that, the adhan, the call to prayer. When it says come to prayer, what does it relate? Come to success. I think it's hayya al-falah or hayya al-falah, one or the other. But subhanAllah, look how is correlating prayer and success. How more can Allah explain these things, this reality to us as a Muslim? We should wake up and take a hold of this life, be responsible human being. So the very fundamental box of our being is to believe in one true God as a creator, as a maintainer, as a caretaker, as a director, as somebody who deeply loves us and who only wants benefit. And you know, all of us ought to have this reality of Tawheed, which means only to believe that Allah is the only one in reality, everything dependent on Allah. Allah is doing everything, and not be confused by the means, this cause and effect in this physical world, and not to depend on them or to be affected by them, but to go directly to Tawheed, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why the Surah Ikhlas, Qul huwallahu ahad, it tells you what lies in such a beautiful, simple way. Because I think some Bedouins or somebody asked the Prophet, who's your God? And Allah revealed that surah. How wonderful. And you know, wallahi, look, for 13 years in Makkah, the Prophet ﷺ keep propagating this notion of Tawheed, oneness of God, oneness of God, oneness, but through all the stories of the prophets, to show, to strengthen our heart and our belief and our values in one true God. You know, subhanAllah. And the other do's and the don'ts and the instructions and the commandments, they mostly came in Medina, which was 10 years. So you see how important it is for us to build on our Tawheed. And that's what most of my podcast is always about, Tawheed. Because once we have fixed that, once we have established that, once we have strengthened that, once we are anchored into that, once we are grounded in that, then things become easy. So believing in Allah, there's a ritual part, and also, there's the more deeper part, our belief, our perspective, our outlook on life, how we see the world. Yeah, so these two things. So let us look at those two ways of living. Well, it's one way of living, but two way of looking at it. One is the ritual part. And this is where the Muslim fulfill the obligation of living the 5 pillars of Islam. We know the 5 pillars of Islam. You know Shahada, you know the prayer and the fasting and the payment of the poor due and going to pilgrimage if we can afford it, because it's mighty expensive now, apparently. You know, it's getting more and more expensive. But Allah said, only if you can afford it. Look at the merciful Lord. He didn't say you have to do it. Wallahi, the more I delve into, all this, how Allah interacts, how Allah intervenes in our lives, the more I'm awed and fascinated by it. And I'm amazed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the more I fall in love with Him. Wallahi, is such a sweet, sweet way of life. The other is obviously, which is the inner, dimension, the other perspective of looking at the world, which is the spiritual perspective. So one, we have the ritual, and this is the more deeper perspective, and it's linked with how we our deep self is, how our spiritual, our soul is, and the most important, obviously, part is spiritual growth is to have sincerity. We have to be sincere, so that we do things for the sake of Allah and not to please other people and not to seek validation from other people. Wallahi, I tell you, it's Allah that we should be seeking validation from. Allah is the one who created us. Allah is the one who's going to reward us, not people. And we are so foolish. We seek validation for people. We run all our lives running after pleasing this and pleasing that, subhanallah. So that's why the more we look deeper into the faith, the more we will find these gems that we can use in our everyday life. So obviously, when we're conscious of Tawheed, to believe in one God and to worship Him, we slowly realize that Allah is with us wherever we are. Look how beautiful it is to experience Allah's presence in our life. And no matter where we are, He will always be with us. This understanding develops over time. The more we live with the do's and the don'ts of Islamic principle, the bigger awareness we have of the bigger picture. What is life? What is our purpose? What are we doing here? How we should live our life? The more we will understand, the workings of this universe, and the more we will be comfort and will be confident within ourselves. Allah tells us that we have a purpose on this earth, and that the Quran is the main purpose to tell us how to live our life, how to be true abid of Allah. And, subhanAllah, Quran is the most important reality in a human being's life. And when we live by the Quran, we achieve harmony externally and internally, and we achieve a balance. Subhanallah, look how wonderful it is. We all run after all these sort of books that tell us, how to achieve a balanced way of life, how to live in harmony, and, they have all these yoga poses and everything like that. In reality, it comes from implementing Quran in our lives. The teaching of the Quran are not complicated, or it's not opposite or contrary to our living. Wallahi, it really fits human nature. It really fits human nature. And subhanAllah, the teaching of our Quran is for our benefit. And even the warnings in the Quran are for our benefit. Subhanallah, look how harmful is alcohol. And Allah said, don't do it, don't drink it. Because Allah wants us to have a clear intellect, to see and analyze the world and to make correct choices. And when Allah says don't do something, it's for our benefit. It's like, see, if my child is young and he wants to go near fire, of course I'm going to say to him, don't go near the fire. Because we know when he goes near the fire, he will burn himself. So it's simple as that. So when we harmonize the body and the soul with the Quran, and the end result, and with sincerity, that's when we're going to get peace and tranquility. But if we are extreme to one side, it means that we care too much about the body, and we neglect the soul, then we won't be happy. And then if we just take care of our internal being and say it right, we're not going to enjoy the world, blah blah. We have to really just focus on this internal thing and just be leave this world. Allah said, no, don't do that. Live in the world, but take as much as you want. No, don't go to excess, and don't deny yourself the pleasure of life. And that's why being monks and nuns are forbidden in Islam. Allah created human beings to enjoy each other. And Allah created, food and drink and everything for us. But we have to have it in modesty, in moderation. Sorry, not modesty, in moderation. So we don't go to excess. So, subhanAllah, it's like, we have to keep a balance. It's balance between, I remember bringing up children, and it was so, we had to struggle with a balance of discipline and warmth. So when we bring children up, we have to have both of those elements to nurture a child. And that's what Islam does. It gives us both. It gives us love, and it also gives us discipline. How beautiful it is, this discipline. So wallahi, especially the 5-time prayer, I'm amazed how much we, how we discipline ourselves, how much we become aware of the time moving, how the sun moves in the sky, how much it makes us aware, and it connects us with the heavenly body. How wonderful is that? A little creature like you and I, Allah connects us with heaven when we follow that revelation and when we pray 5 times a day. So, subhanAllah, it's like, having a balanced outlook in this life and trying to live that. So we don't go to one extreme. Islam is never about extremes. Islam is the middle path. And that's why in Surah Fatiha, when we say, we pray to Allah, we glorify Him, and we say He's the one who's, only Him we worship and Him ask for help, and then we ask Him for a straight path of moderation in everything in life, so we don't go to excess. So, the Quran should be exclusively, the main purpose of our life, that we have to live by it. So that's what connects us with Allah. And subhanAllah, when we're doing something other than for the sake of Allah, we should always stop and correct ourselves. Allah wants pure deen. He does not want contaminated action. Subhanallah. I remember, a close friend of mine who became a priest, and, he would say that lots of his friends who were priests, they normally came to this calling because of the power that's embedded in that position, rather than for the sake of God, to serve God. This is impurity of that attitude, and Allah doesn't want that. Allah doesn't want hypocrites. Allah wants us to be genuine and real with Him and do the first thing for His sake. Because ultimately He's the one we are dependent upon. He's the one who's taking care of us. He's the one who's providing everything. The oxygen that we breathe, Allah has given us even the air to breathe. Subhanallah. And the other thing which is amazing, look, subhanallah, look how much Allah knows our intentions. How much Allah knows. So can you imagine when Allah says, I'm closer to your jugular vein, it really makes sense. Because no one knows your intention other than Allah. Only Allah knows one's intention. Subhanallah. So that all our choices and our decisions and our action and our deeds should be done sincerely for Allah's sake. We looked at, when you look at some of the previous nation, they could not keep this balance. Some of them had sort of rigid law, and they neglected the spirit of law. Other nations only considered the spirit of law and neglected the ritual, the law part of the revelation. So subhanAllah, Islam came to correct all the other previous scriptures and to bring harmony with us. When Islam is practiced correctly, embodies both outer aspect of the law and also outer aspect of the law of the 5 pillars and the inner spirit of law, having the right attitude, having the right intention, and developing this consciousness of Allah. Both of them have to be in harmony, just like the harmony we have to have within the body and the soul. Thank you.